We ask for Allah's blessings upon the noble Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his household and his companion. We pray to Almighty Allah to accept all of our prayers. We ask Almighty Allah to grant us beneficial knowledge. We ask Almighty Allah to grant us wisdom and understanding of the religion. We pray that everything that we learn from today's lecture be beneficial to us, and may Allah grant us the reward in this life and in the hereafter. Ameen ya Allah. Today, inshallah, we'll be looking at the conditions of fasting, talking about what we should concern ourselves about when we're fasting, the things we should focus on, the things we should be careful about, and what are the rules that are laid out for one who is fasting, what are the things that can spoil the fast, and when the fast is deficient, how do you fix it? What do you do if you break your fast unknowingly or knowingly? So the requirements for fasting, there are actually 6 of them. The 6 requirements. The first one is muraqabatu awwal shahr Ramadan, searching or being expectant, searching for the first day of Ramadan. That is what we know here as looking for the moon, finding the moon if it is the new moon, which signifies the beginning of the month. So searching for the new moon is a very significant exercise that we have to perform as Muslims in order to begin our fasting and in order to make sure that we're fasting correctly. Because if you're fasting outside of the month of Ramadan, it won't be counted. So the scholars have said, first of all, there's an annual question we ask ourselves for this first step. Again, the first step in fasting, the first requirement is searching for the moon. Now, the major question we used to ask ourselves when it's time for Ramadan is, can we all fast at the same time? Why aren't Muslims fasting at the same time? And why don't we find the moon at the same time? Or when they announce sighting the moon in some place, why don't we all start fasting? There's a sort of disagreement between the scholars on this question. For example, Imam al-Ghazali, for example, said, he said, if the moon is sighted somewhere, everywhere else that is closer to the place where the moon is sighted, they can depend on the sighting of the moon in that one place. If they're close together, say, for example, one state to another, where the distance between them is not so far apart. Imam al-Ghazali said they can use the sighting of the moon in that one place. Specifically, he said, إِذَا رُؤِيَ الْإِلَالِ بِبَلْدَةٍ وَلَمْ يُرَى بِأُخْرَى. If it is sighted in one state and it is not sighted in another state, وَكَانَ بَيْنَهُمَا أَقَلَّ مِنْ مَرْحَلَتَيْنِ, and the distance between them is not so large, وَجَبَ الصَّوْمُ عَلَى الْكُلِّ, then all of them should use the sighting from that one state, and based on that, they should also fast in the other state where it is not sighted. وَإِنْ كَانَ أَكْثَرُ كَانَ لِكُلِّ بَلْدَةٍ حُكْمُهَا. But if the distance between those two places is so far apart, Imam al-Ghazali said each state should sight its own moon. And remember, the rule for sighting the moon is that on the 29th day of Sha'awal, no, on the 29th day, so you start searching for the moon of Shahr Ramadan. If it is, again, the states are closer together, they use the same rule. Now, the question was asked to Sheikh Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, and his own answer to that was, he said there are two ways to look at it. And he said the scholars look at it from 2 points. One part of them said all Muslims of the world can fast based on the ruling or based on the sighting in one state, one Islamic state. And the other part of the scholars said that each state or each country or each place should cite their own moon and stay on that. Specifically, he said, ala qawlayn, li ahli al-ilm. Minhum man qala yulzim. That is, it is possible, it is okay to use one sighting and everyone should follow it. وذكره بعضهم قول الجمهور أنه يلزم بقية المسلمين أن يصوموا إذا ثبت في السعودية مثلا أو في مصر أو في شام أو في كذا أو في كذا برؤية شرعية وجب على الباقين أن يصوموا معهم إذا ثبت ذلك من طريق محكمة شرعية معتمدة يوثق بها. That, for example, if the moon is sighted, all Muslims can decide to say, if the moon is sighted in Saudi Arabia, the rest of the Muslim world should begin fasting. It is possible to say that. And it said, وَقَالَ الْآخَرُونَ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ. The other part of scholars said, لَا يُلْزِمْ ذَلِكَ, that it is not okay to do this, that each state should cite its own moon, but لِكُلِّ آلِ بَلَدٍ رُؤْيَتِهِمْ لأن المطالع تختلف وتتباعد بعض الأحيان كما بين أمريكا والجزيرة العربية. He said because most of the times the states are far apart, and you also have time differences to consider amongst the states, like the distance between America and the Gulf of the Arab states. You can this other argument from the other scholars to say you do not use the same moon sighting in another country to judge the one for another country. And the ones that say that you should use it, they said specifically that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his hadith said that sumu li ru'yatihi waftiru li ru'yatihi. When the Prophet said fast at the sighting of the moon, he didn't specifically say that at the sighting for each place. He said fast at the sighting of the moon. It's a general statement that says once the moon is sighted, this is the argument of the scholars that say you can use the sighting in any place and use it anywhere else that you're at. That based on the hadith of the Prophet, once the moon is sighted in one place, if it's a Muslim that sighted it, if the person fulfills all the conditions that we look for someone who has come to give, to bear witness to sighting the moon, then all Muslims from all over the world should fast based on that proclamation. The scholars that said, no, you cannot do this, they also brought their own evidence to say, see, some time ago, there was a time when someone came from Sham, and he came to Ibn Abbas, radiyallahu anhu, and Ibn Abbas asked this man that, have you started fasting? The man said, yes, we started fasting on Friday, because someone came to Muawiyah and told Muawiyah that they sighted the moon, and based on that, Muawiyah started fasting, and everyone else started fasting with Muawiyah. And Ibn Abbas told the man that we did not start fasting until Saturday. And then the man from Sham asked him that, why won't you follow the same sighting that Muawiyah follow and the people of Sham are following? So because we are the people of Medina, we have not sighted the moon here. And Ibn Abbas quoted the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when the Prophet said, "Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftiru." Ibn Abbas said, "Akaza amarana Rasul," that this is how the Prophet commanded us to fast. حيث قال لنا صوموا لرؤيته وأفطروا لرؤيته فإن غم عليكم فأكملوا العدة 30. Now, the Prophet said, fast when you sight the moon, and break your fast when you sight the moon. وإن غم عليكم فأكملوا العدة. If for whatever reason you're not able to sight the moon, then complete the month to 30 days. فابن عباس روى أن الحديث لا يؤم الدول كله والبلاد كلها. So in Ibn Abbas's point, it says every state for itself. So finally, the Sheikh himself, Sheikh Ibn Baz, he was asked specifically that, what is your final verdict on this? And he said to them, in the Adam Tayassur al-Ijtima', if there cannot be a consensus on this, because both sides have their point and both sides are correct. If we say we should all fast based on the sighting in Saudi Arabia, will be correct. If we say The people in America should cite their own moon. The people in Saudi should stick with their own moon, would also be correct. But Sheikh Mubaz said the way that he sees it right now, that it is better for each state to cite its own moon. But if we want to agree to come together, we can make a reference of such a place as Saudi Arabia, because here أولى الدول في هذا المكان, because Saudi Arabia will be in the best position to be followed if we want to agree on the citing in one particular place. And that is about the first most important step we take as far as the conditions for fasting is concerned. The second condition we have to adhere to for fasting in the month of Ramadan is aniyya, the intention of fasting, the intention of fasting. Now, there's also no consensus on how the intention should be for fasting. Some scholars say that the intention can be made once at the beginning of the month, and it's no need to make any further intention in the course of the month until the end of the month. As long as the first day you make your intention to fast for the month of Ramadan, 29 days or 30 days. You don't need to repeat this niyyah. Imam al-Ghazali, radiyallahu anhu, is of the opinion that you have to make this intention every single night. So the first night you make an intention to fast the month of Ramadan. Renew your intention. He said it is best that you renew your intention every single day. And also, he makes a point to say that it is important to make this intention and actually be intentional about it. And it is not enough to just say it with your mouth, but also with your heart. It has to be there. You have to show the assurance within yourself. Keep telling yourself every day while you're fasting and that you intend to fast. So make the niyyah every day. He said, "La budda li kulli laylatin min niyyatin mubayyatatin muayyanatin jazima." It has to be intentional. It has to be done overnight, and it has to be clearly specified that this fasting is for Ramadan. وَلَوْ نَوَى أَنْ يَصُومَ شَهْرَ رَمَضَانَ دُفْعَةً وَاحِدَةً لَمْ يَكْفِهِ. He said, even if someone does it only one night for the whole of Ramadan, it won't be enough in his own point of view. And that is one point of view. The other point says you can do it once. But then the question also came that what if, so you began fasting and you make the intention the first night, but during the course of the month, for whatever reason, you had to stop fasting. So like a woman who runs into a period during the course of the month, and she has to stop fasting for like 5 or 6 days out of the 30 days. If she resumes fasting after a period, if she resumes fasting, should she make another intention? Again, another opinion is she doesn't need to remake the intention because she made the intention at the beginning of the month. The other opinion says she has to remake the intention. And those who say she has to remake the intention, they put it side by side with another compulsory act of worship, which is salat. That when one comes to salat, putting salat side by side with the 1 month of fasting, you make your intention for salat, maybe a zuhr, for example, which is 4 rak'ah. You make your intention for zuhr at the beginning of the prayer. But if something happens in the middle of the prayer, you have to break. Maybe your wudu broke and you have to go make another wudu. If you come back to that prayer and the imam is still on the prayer, you have to remake the intention. Also, another point from that is that for those who say you have to make your intention every day for Ramadan, it's also said that for another compulsory act like salat, you only make the intention once at the beginning of the salat. You don't make the intention at every qiyam. You don't make the intention for every rak'ah. You make the intention at the beginning of the salat, and it carries throughout the whole of the salat. And they say that also applies to fasting. You make the intention for the month of Ramadan, and it should carry you throughout the month. But if there's a break in between it, the same way for salat, if there's a break in between the salat, if you come back to join that salat, you have to remake the niyyah the same way for fasting. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Now, the third condition that one has to be cognizant of for Ramadan fasting is al-imsak and isalu shay'in ila al-jawfi amdan. It is for one to hold back from anything getting to their belly, anything getting to their throat, all the way to their belly. So that much we're all aware of, and people are more conscious of this, alhamdulillah. Anything that can spoil the fasting, like eating and drinking, or anything else that has been, said to us multiple times. And I think an email was sent out. We have this Ramadan package that lists out the things that can break one's fast. Something to notice that أما من أكل عامدا في طرفي النهار ثم ظهر له أنه أكل نهارا بالتحقيق فعليه القضاء. There's a case where one eats unintentionally, and there's a case where one eats intentionally. The one that eats unintentionally would not have to break that fast. Once you remember that I am fasting, but you already drank something or you already ate something, you just stop eating whatever you're eating at the time you remember, and you don't have to pay that back, and you don't have to break that fast. Now that you remember, just continue your fasting till the end of the day. This much is expected to happen to people, especially in the first few days of Ramadan, where one is not yet adjusted to the new state of fasting. So this might happen to people at that time. But it is also said that if someone does eat something, break their fast by eating something, they have to pay back that fast. Number 4 condition, al-imsak anil-jima. Al-imsak anil-jima, holding back from having sexual relations. Sexual relations is one of the things that can break one's fast in the daytime, on a day of Ramadan. وحده بالتغييب الحشفة إن جامع ناسيا لم يفطر. But the scholars also said that if one has sexual relations unknowingly, unintentionally, if one unintentionally, maybe they forgot that they are fasting and unintentionally find themselves in the act of having sexual relations, then that does not break the fast, as long as they stop at the time they remember, and they can continue the fasting from that point on. وَإِنْ جَامَعَ لَيْلًا أَوْ اِتَلَمَ فَأَصْبَحَ جُنُبًا لَمْ يُفْطِرْ. If one has sexual relations overnight, after breaking the fast in the evening, one has sexual relations overnight, أَوْ اِتَلَمَ, or one has a wet dream overnight, فَأَصْبَحَ جُنُبًا, and one wakes up in a state of janaba, a state where one has ejaculated and not taken the bath yet. So you went to sleep in that state, and then when you woke up, it was already daytime, fasting had already begun, it was already Fajr time, fasting has already begun. Said this does not break your fast. You continue to break, you can go take the bath and continue with your fast. It doesn't affect the fasting anyway. وَإِنْ طَلَعَ الْفَجْرُ وَهُوَ مُخَالِطٌ أَهْلَهُ فَنَزَعَ فِي الْحَالِ صَحَّ صَوْمُهُ وَإِنْ صَبَرَ فَسَدَ وَلَزِمَتِ الْكَفَّارَةُ. And it is also said that, say for example, maybe at the time of sahur, one wakes up, a husband and a wife. They wake up during sahur, they engage in sexual relations, and while they are at it having sexual relations, Fajr came in. Fasting has begun, but they are still at it. The scholars say if they stop right there and then, it doesn't break their fast. But if they delay for any reason, after knowing that Fajr has come in, they don't stop immediately. If they delay, then that breaks their fast, and they will be owing kafara. We'll explain what qada is and what kafara is, inshallah. Number 5, al-imsak an al-istimna. Al-imsak an al-istimna, holding back oneself, cautioning oneself against such acts as masturbation. Masturbation that can be maybe even from one thinking too much about having sexual relations, one having such thoughts of pleasure that can bring about a release or ejaculation. Masturbation doesn't necessarily have to involve any physical activity. It could be just from mere thoughts, or from looking at something, or from doing something, not necessarily touching oneself. Any act that can cause one to ejaculate is considered an act of masturbation, and this one can also break one's fast as one if one is involved or engaged in such acts. فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ يُفْطِرُ, because this act will break your fast. If in any case, وَلَا يُفْطِرُ بِقُبْلَةِ زَوْجَتِهِ. So this act of masturbation, like we said, again, it doesn't only involve one touching themselves. It is any act that has to do with one thinking about pleasure, maybe even not engaging in it directly, but the thought of it, or looking at it, that can cause one to ejaculate, male or female, is considered an act of masturbation, and it breaks the fast. وَلَا يُفْطِرُ بِقُبْلَةِ زَوْجَتِهِ وَلَا بِمَضَاجَعَتِهَا مَا لَمْ يُنْزَلْ. It is also said that kissing one's legitimate wife, and this has a lot of conditions attached to it, but for a legitimately married couple, kissing does not break their fast. وَلَا بِمَضَاجَعَتِهَا, lying down together, cuddling with one's legitimate spouse does not break the fast. However, the caveat is يُكْرَأُ ذَلِكَ إِلَّا أَنْ يَكُونَ شَيْكًا أَوْ مَالِكًا لِإِرْبِهِ. This is highly discouraged. The scholars highly discourage this, even though it is allowed. It is discouraged, except for a person who has total control over themselves, who has total self-control, that you know that kissing would not lead to something else, and you're totally sure of that, and you know that cuddling up with one spouse will not lead to something else that will be forbidden, which is sexual relations. So if the kissing would not lead to sexual relation, it could be just a peck, like someone leaving home and saying goodbye to one's spouse, pecking them on the cheek or pecking them on the lips. This is acceptable and doesn't break the fast. Lying down together to comfort one another in a cuddle does not break the fast if it does not extend beyond that to sexual relations. And also, it is said that if one engages in this act, that is, the act of kissing one's spouse or cuddling up with them or playing with them, knowing within themselves that they cannot control themselves or control their desires, and they end up ejaculating from this act, or this act itself leads to something else that's the actual sexual relation. Either ways, if they end up ejaculating based on them not being able to control themselves, then they have broken their fast, and now they are at risk of owing a payback for that fast. But it is highly advised to avoid this kind of sexual contact with one's spouses during the day unless it is absolutely necessary and unless one can guarantee that they can control themselves and control their desires. The sixth condition, al-imsak and ikhraj al-qay, holding oneself from vomiting. فالاستقاء يفسد الصوم. Forcing oneself to vomit will break the fast. Forcing oneself to vomit will break the fast. Like one putting their fingers in their throats, that will cause their fast to be broken. However, وَإِنْ زَرَعَهُ الْقَيْءُ لَمْ يُفْسِدُ صَوْمُهُ. But if the vomit is itself overpowering someone, like the vomit is coming by itself, you are not forcing it to come. For whatever reason, there's an irritation and you are forced to vomit. This does not break the fast. وَإِذَا ابْتَلَعَ مِنْ نَخَامَةٍ مِنْ أَلْكِهِ أَوْ صَدْرِهِ لَمْ يُفْسِدْ صَوْمُهُ رُخْصَةً لِعُمُومِ الْبَلْوَى. So it is said that if vomit is coming to someone and the vomit gets to the throat, if the vomit gets to the throat and the person swallows it, it hasn't gone past the throat. The person has the ability to swallow it. That doesn't break the person's fast. However, if the vomit is coming and it gets to the person's mouth, and the person swallows it after it has mixed up in his mouth, the fast is broken with that kind of vomit. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 184, just so we're clear about how important it is to understand what breaks the fast and what doesn't break the fast, and how to pay back fast that is broken. Allah says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala allazina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O you who have believed, fasting is ordained upon you as it was ordained upon those before you, that you may attain piety. The scholars have said that fasting, amongst all the other acts of worship to Allah, is the one act of worship that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not excuse anyone from. It doesn't excuse anyone from it. Everyone has to fast. One who is not able to fast has to pay back the fasting one way or the other. The ways that we pay back the fasting is what we're going to explain next. Allah also said in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 184, أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مُرِيدٌ أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. Whoever amongst you that is sick or on a journey, فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ, should pay back whatever is missed from their fasting at other days. Paying back in this sense means paying exactly the amount that was missed. وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. And for those who find it difficult to fast, for those who find it hard to fast, فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ, they can repay that, they can cover up for that, they can make up for it by feeding the needy. When this verse was revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people could decide, it gave them a choice. I could wake up in the morning and decide that I don't feel like fasting today. And I have the option of feeding the needy in place of me fasting. Because Allah said, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. You have a choice. If you don't want to fast, you don't feel like it, you don't feel you have the power to do so, then feed the needy, and that covers for it. That covers up for it. وَمَنْ تَطَوَّعَ خَيْرًا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ وَأَنْ تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. And then verse 185, Allah said, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهَرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. This abrogates the first one that said, عَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةُ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. When Allah revealed the next verse after it that said, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهَرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ, whoever witnesses the month should fast. It took away the option that He gave them before to say, if you don't feel like fasting, feed a needy. Now it's saying that if you witness the month, you have to fast. You don't have that option to just wake up in the morning and say you don't feel like it, unless you truly, truly don't have the ability to fast. So it's no longer an option. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهَرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ, whoever witnesses the month should fast. وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا, for those who are sick, who are incapable of fasting, who don't have the ability to fast. أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ, or those who are on a journey. فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ, they should pay back at other times. So the first condition is for those who would only pay back what is missed. Examples of those people, فَوُجُوبُهُ عَامٌ عَمَلْ قَضَاء, those who will pay back exactly what was missed. If you missed one day, you pay back one day. The category of people who would do this, فَوُجُوبُهُ عَامٌ, the general consensus on this, عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ مُكَلَّفٍ تَرَكَ الصَّوْمَ بِعُذْرٍ. For every person who for one reason or the other, one legitimate reason from the reasons that are recounted in the Quran, like the person who is on a journey, or the person who is sick, or the person who, a woman who is menstruating, تَقْضِي الصَّوْمَ وَكَذَا الْمُرْتَدِّ. They will just have to repay back what was missed. There's no punishment there for them. They just repay what was missed because Allah gave them that allowance. Again, it's not like salat where if you're menstruating, you don't have to bother about paying back the salat. For fasting, you will pay back the fasting after the month of Ramadan. Amal kafir, but for those who are disbelievers, al-murtaddu, the person who left Islam and then came back to Islam within the month, if in the month of Ramadan, someone disbelieves and then he accepts Islam again, or maybe he does something that takes him out of the fold of Islam, and then he comes back into the fold of Islam, he will pay back the fast that he missed in the month of Ramadan. But for someone who is a total kafir, who is a disbeliever, it's not like he left the fold and then came back to it. He's a disbeliever. He doesn't even believe in Allah. He's not a Muslim. Wasabiyu, and a small child that has not reached the age of mukallaf, who is not expected, nothing of religion, no religious duty is expected of them. Wal majnun, or someone who loses their senses during the month of Ramadan, fala qadaha alayhim, they don't owe any fasting. So someone who loses their senses during the month of Ramadan, if he misses 10 fasting and then he regains his senses, he doesn't pay back the 10 that he missed during the time when he lost his senses. A young child that has not reached the age of fulfilling religious duties doesn't have to pay back the fasting that they missed. Al-kafir, a disbeliever, does not have to pay back the fasting that they missed. So say, for example, again, someone maybe at the beginning of this month, he was not a Muslim. And then maybe he listened to a sermon and he was touched by it, and then he accepted Islam. Remembering that, or taking note that at the beginning of the month, he was not a Muslim. So at the time when he became a Muslim, even if it is within the Ramadan, within the month of Ramadan, it is from that point that he begins to fast. He doesn't fast whatever has been missed. For example, today is day 10, I think, and day 11. Day 11. So someone accepts Islam today for the first time. He has never been a Muslim before. He accepts Islam today. Day 10. So today is day 10. So someone accepts Islam today. He has never been a Muslim before. He begins fasting from today. He doesn't have to pay the 9 days that he missed. But someone who was a Muslim before, and then he changed his religion to something else, and then came back to Islam today. He reaccepted Islam. He came back today. He has missed those 9 days. He will pay back those 9 days. Now, it is also said that for those who are repaying their fasting, there's no specific way to repay. It's not like if I miss 10 fasts or I miss 5 or 6, you have to pay those 5 consecutively. That is 5 days altogether. You have to do it on the same, maybe in 1 week. On Monday, you start on Monday and you finish on Friday. You don't have to repay those 5 days consecutively. You can fast as much as you're able to right after Ramadan. You can take it, you have the rest of the year to pay back those 5 days. It doesn't have to be consecutive days. It can be any days of your choosing and in any arrangement that is most convenient to you. وَأَمَّا الْكَفَارَ, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَأَمَّا الْكَفَارَ, the scholars are of different opinion on kafara. For example, Imam al-Ghazali says that فَلَا تَجِبُ لَا تَجِبُ الْكَفَارَ إِلَّا فِي الْجِمَاعِ, that kafara is not necessary, and kafara is like paying a penalty for doing something extremely wrong. Now, Imam al-Ghazali says kafara is only necessary for someone who engages in sexual activities during the afternoon of fasting. And how do you pay kafara? Some other scholars say kafara also applies to someone who eats in the afternoon on the day of fasting, knowingly, not mistakenly, knowingly, looking at Allah and saying, what are you going to do about it? And taking food and eating it without any apparent excuse, no health issues, nothing, no apparent excuse, just decide to dare Allah and eat. Some scholars say there's kafara for that. Some scholars say there's no kafara because this is close to kufr. Because one who is daring Allah, what is he doing kafara for? What is he paying back for? Allah doesn't even need your fasting anymore beyond that. But again, difference of opinion on that. But there's consensus on the fact that anyone that performs sexual activities, like we mentioned earlier, maybe via masturbation or having direct sexual relations with one's spouse on the day of fasting now owes kafaro. Kafaro again, which means penalty. And how do you pay this penalty? The penalty is paid by freeing a slave. Freeing a slave, فَالْكَفَارَةُ عِتْقُ رَقَبَةٍ, freeing a slave, فَإِنْ أَعْسَرَ فَصَوْمُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. If one is not able to free a slave, as we have in our societies today where slavery is abolished and there's no such thing, one doing kafara will have to fast for 2 consecutive months. Now it's different from one who is paying back fasting. This one is a penalty, and the penalty is that you pay for 60 days consecutively. فَإِنْ عَجَزَ, if one is not able to fast for 60 days, to pay this penalty by fasting for 60 days consecutively, فَإِتْعَامُ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينَ مُدًّا مُدًّا. It's for one to feed 60 needy there are some people who, if they break their fast, they still have to continue fasting anyways. Even though they have to repay it, they still have to continue fasting. فَيَجِبُ عَلَى مَنْ no. فَيَجِبُ عَلَى مَنْ عَصَى بِالْفِطْرِ أَوْ قَصَّرَ فِيهِ. It is necessary for someone who forgets that they are fasting to continue the fasting once they remember. Maybe you just finished drinking a sweet juice or cup of juice, and you remember I'm actually fasting, or you just remember while you're eating gum that you're fasting today. You stop eating at that time and you continue your fast from that point on, and you will repay that fast afterwards. Or someone who's negligent about their fasting. He knows that he's fasting. He has made a mistake, like we talked about earlier, for someone who, if one is not drinking something directly, but something falls into one's mouth. For example, it is expected that one takes specific steps to throw that thing out of their mouth. Maybe a fly enters into your mouth. A fly enters into your mouth, you should spit it out. You don't swallow it negligently. You don't let it take too much time in your mouth to the point where it now gets swallowed. That will break your fast. And if that happens, even though your fast is broken and you know your fast is broken at that time, you don't then go and cook something and eat, or you don't go and buy something and eat. You continue fasting throughout the day, but you already owe the fast for that day. You have to pay it back. وَلَا يَجِبُ عَلَى الْحَائِطِ. But this is not necessary on someone on a woman who's menstruating. إِذَا طَهَرَتْ إِمْسَاكُ بَقِيَّةُ نَهَارِهَا. If a woman is menstruating and during the course of the day, the menstruation ends and she takes a bath, she doesn't have to fast for the remainder of the day. She has the whole of that day already because she started the day in a menstrual state. Now, وَأَمَّا الْفِدْيَةِ, for fidya means a substitute. For someone who's not able to fast, they don't have the ability to fast like an old man or an old person, an old woman, or like a pregnant woman, or like a woman who's breastfeeding, for example. They don't have the power to fast because they fear the woman who's breastfeeding and the woman who's pregnant. They fear for the baby that they're carrying. لكل يوم مدة أن تطعم مسكينا واحدا من القضاء. They have to, for a woman who is pregnant and a woman who is currently breastfeeding, they will not fast during the month or during the time that is not convenient for them. However, every day in the month of Ramadan, both of them, they will feed the needy, one needy. So one woman feed one needy for every day of Ramadan, but she still owes the fasting. She still has to pay back after the month. She still has to pay back the fasting. However, وَالشَّيْخُ الْحَرِمُ إِذَا لَمْ يَصُمْ تَصَدَّقَ عَنْ كُلِّ يَوْمٍ مُدَّةٍ. But for an old man or an old person who is not capable of fasting because of their health, such a person can just feed the needy and they don't have to pay back because they cannot pay back in any case. Now, having said all of this, for the things that breaks the fast and how to pay back the fast when it's broken, one more thing that's important to note is the fact that fasting can actually be rendered useless by some acts that we perform in our daily lives that we have to be careful of. You don't only have to be careful of drinking during the afternoon or eating something during the afternoon. There are also some things that are not directly apparent, but that one has to take specific care of. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Kam min sa'imin laysa lahu min sawmihi illa al-ju' wal-'atash." There are many people that think they are fasting. However, the only thing they are deriving from their fasting will be nothing more than, weight loss, hunger, and thirst. They're just keeping themselves thirsty. They're doing an exercise for weight loss. That's the only thing, the only benefit they'll be getting from their fasting. That is because the spiritual benefit from there, the spiritual benefit you are supposed to derive from the fasting, which Allah has stated, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, that you may attain piety. The attaining piety part of it will be lost on them. So the only benefit they'll be getting from their fasting will be the physical benefits. So one of these things that one has to take care of that will not violate their fasting is, the first one will be Gaddul Basar. Gaddul Basar, for one to keep from looking at things that are forbidden. Keep away from looking at things that are forbidden while you are fasting, while you're keeping your stomach empty, while you're keeping your mouth dry. You also have to keep your eyes. Your eyes also have to fast. Don't look at things that are forbidden by Allah. Don't look at things that you should not look at. Do not look at things that would keep your mind busy away from Allah. Don't be look at things that will keep your mind towards Allah. Look at things that will remind you of Allah. Don't look at things that will take you away from Allah. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "An-nazaratu sahamun masmumun min sihami iblis la'anahullah." That the view, the things we look at, it is like a poisoned arrow from the arrows of shaitan. فَمَنْ تَرَكَهَا خَوْفًا مِنَ اللَّهِ أَتَاهُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ إِيمَانًا يَجِدْ عَلَاوَتَهُ فِي قَلْبِهِ. That whoever avoids this arrow of shaitan, that is the things that you look at, the things that you watch with your eyes, the things that you view with your eyes, خَوْفًا مِنَ اللَّهِ, from the fear of Allah, you avoid all this, you avoid this arrow of shaitan. أَتَاهُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ إِيمَانًا, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put a sort of iman in one's heart. يَجِدْ حَلَاوَتَهُ فِي قَلْبِهِ. One would taste the beauty, the significance of it, the sweetness of such faith, of such beautiful iman in one's heart, if one is just able to avoid this poisoned arrow of shaitan. The second thing is hifsul lisan, watching one's tongue during the month of Ramadan. While you are fasting, let your tongue also fast. Let your mouth also fast. Anil azayan wal kazib, from lying, wal ghiba, and from gossiping, wal namima, and from slander, wal fuhsh. And from that, you start talking about things that don't concern you. Keep away from talking too much. Keep away from having too much discussions throughout the time for fasting. Keep your mouth also fasting by keeping quiet a lot. And keep your mouth busy with the remembrance of Allah. وَتِلَاوَةُ الْقُرْآنِ فَآزَ صَوْمُ اللِّسَانِ. And keep your mouth busy with the recitation of the Quran. Rather than having a discussion with someone, have a discussion with Allah. Recite the Quran, keep your mouth busy with that, and that will be considered as the fasting of the tongue. The third one, كَفُّ السَّمْعِ عَنِ الْإِصْغَاءِ إِلَى كُلِّ مَكْرُوهٍ, keeping the ears from listening to things that are forbidden. During the month of Ramadan, your ears should also be fasting. لأن كل ما حرم قوله لأن كل ما حرم قوله حرم الإصغاء إليه. Because everything that is forbidden to say is also forbidden to listen to. Any words that are forbidden to speak is also forbidden to be listened to. ولذلك سوى الله عز وجل بين المستمع وآكل الصوت. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran has drawn a parallel between the people who listen to forbidden things and the people who eat forbidden things. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 42, سَمَّاءُونَ لِلْكَذِبِ أَكَّالُونَ لِلسُّوتِ. They like to listen to falsehood and they like to devour anything that is forbidden. The scholars have also explained that someone who takes care of not eating and drinking during the month of Ramadan, but neglects these other conditions, that is, not listening to something that is forbidden, not looking at things that are forbidden, keeping one's mouth busy with the remembrance of Allah, and also not looking or watching things that are forbidden. They said an example of such a person is the one that knows that wudu is important. That wudu is important, but when it comes time for wudu, he knows that when you make wudu, you have to make wudu 3 times. You wash your hand 3 times, you wash your arms 3 times, you wash your face 3 times. But when he gets there, he's washing his arm 3 times. He's doing it 3 times truly. But when he washes his arm, he washes from here to the middle of the arm. He doesn't wash all the way to the elbow, the way that he's supposed to do it. When he washes his face, he's just doing this. He's doing this 3 times. He's not washing his face properly. He's doing it 3 times, but he's not washing the full face the way he's supposed to wash it. If he does that, he would have done his wudu 3 times as was specified. But if he prays with such wudu, the prayer cannot be accepted because the wudu was not done exactly as it should be done, 100%. And the person who takes care of these other conditions, just to show that these other conditions are more important for one to take care of than spending more time caring about not drinking or eating or stuff, is like the one that also knows that wudu should be made 3 times. You have to do these things 3 times, but he's doing his own 1 time each. He washed his hand once, he washed his arm once, washed his face once, but he's doing it correctly. When he washes his face, he's washing every part of the face. When he washes his arm, he's washing every part of the arm. Because the first wudu, the first one is the most important one, is the fard. If he does it that way and he goes to pray with that wudu, his prayer will be accepted. Although he didn't complete the sunan part of the wudu, but he has done the basic minimum requirement for both parts of it. That is, washing the arms, washing it properly, washing it once. That's the basic requirement for it. It's the same. But the best is the one that does the wudu, washes their parts of the body 3 times and washes it well. The same for the person that is fasting. To take care of the physical aspects of fasting, the physical things that can break one's fast, and also take care of the spiritual part of the things that can break one's fast in terms of listening and hearing and speaking. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it beneficial to us, accept all of our acts of ibadah, accept our fasting as an act of ibadah, grant us the ability to see us through the month of Ramadan, and grant us the ability to witness many more years, many more Ramadan. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم فسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خيرا في الدنيا والآخرة. بسم الله.
Now, if anyone has any question, we'll take questions for 3 or 5 minutes. No. Alhamdulillah, there's no questions, so we'll move forward.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I do have a question. Jazakumullah khairan for the lecture. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward you abundantly. My question here is, what are the kafara for breaking a fast? The kafara for breaking a fast.
We explained earlier that kafara means penalty that one pays for breaking the fast.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same kafara for the person. For breaking the fast is two. There's breaking the fast intentionally, and there's breaking the fast unintentionally. For one that breaks the fast unintentionally by eating and drinking, unintentionally they just pay, but that's qada, that's not kafara. For one that breaks it intentionally, for one that breaks their fast intentionally by eating and drinking, then kafara can be applied to such a person. And again, kafara, we've said, is first by ethical raqaba, by freeing a slave. If that is not possible or not available, the person should fast sha'raini mutatabi'ain. The person should fast for 60 consecutive days after Ramadan as a penalty. And if the person is not able to fast for 60 consecutive days, then the person should feed 60 needy people after the month of Ramadan. That will be the penalty, that's a kafara. But again, that is for someone who engages in sexual relations or knowingly eats. Again, the scholars on the person who knowingly eats something or drinks something during the day of Ramadan fasting, there's no consensus on that in terms of whether the person owes kafara or the person is just a kafir. Because, you know, it is totally forbidden to do such things, but for someone to do it, some scholars say that is kufr. That there's no kafara that would cover that. There was no kafara that would cover it. But some scholars say you still have to do the kafara anyways, and then seek forgiveness from Allah because it is a great sin against Allah, and Allah knows best.
Jazakumullah khairan. Another question on the chat.
The same thing applies to anyone who engages in sexual relation knowingly. It's not about sexual relation unknowingly. They just found themselves, one thing led to another, that's different. But the one that knowingly doesn't care, what's going to happen, that one also, it's tantamount to kufr. There's no amount of kafara that will cover it, but the person should do kafara anyways and seek forgiveness from Allah, because again, it is a great sin to have done such a thing, and Allah knows best.
Jazakumullah khairan. The last question, can someone have a dental care or treatment during fasting?
Now, alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Yes, if they can make sure that nothing goes beyond the mouth, goes over the throat when they're doing the cleaning and everything. It is best to avoid this because you cannot totally guarantee that nothing is going to slip through, you know, when you have your head all the way to the back and, you know, they're pouring liquid into your mouth, that nothing slips through your throat, into your stomach. Because if that happens, that breaks your fast. So it is better to delay that, maybe set a time after Ramadan, get an appointment after Ramadan, just to avoid stories that touch. Or if the dentist is available anytime after iftar, then you can go after iftar, and Allah knows best.
Jazakumullah khairan. Yes, so this will conclude our question and answer. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward our Imam, Ustaz AbdulAzeez Alugo, for the beautiful lecture and some of the things we all need to know when it comes to Ramadan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward you abundantly. So have you been able to check if we have any sponsor tonight? While Ustaz Alugo is checking, again, we would like to ask everyone to please to also sponsor. As you all know, on a daily basis, we bring out, or we tend to give you different, bring you different lecturers, to hear from them, from different perspectives. So whereby, you can ask questions. So we want you all to also sponsor, whether you can sponsor a day, you can sponsor many times as you want. So let us do so.
No sponsor yet, unless we have someone online right now that wants to sponsor today's program.
Okay, actually, yeah, I will be the sponsor. I'll sponsor that. Today's the alhamdulillah, the first 10 days, we've just concluded the first 10 days, right? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So that's an opportunity. Bismillah. Myself and the family, we will sponsor.
We want to pray for the sponsors and everyone on the call. Jazakumullah khair.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu.
Assalamu alaikum, Afa. Even if I sponsor, I want to be a sponsor too. Me and my family want to be a sponsor. Allah will.
Alhamdulillah. So Imam, we have the Balugu family, we have the Alawari family. Who else also want to join us as well? Who else wants to join?
The BCLU family is joining.
Alhamdulillah.
For sponsoring today's lecture, today's report. Jazakumullah khairan. We pray that Allah bless you all for your act of worship, because it is indeed an act of worship to contribute towards such. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you your heart desires. May Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove away from you all the evil that you fear and that are known to you that you fear, and those that are not known to you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your Ramadan, accept your devotion. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless every single one of you. جزاكم الله خيرا. جزاكم الله خيرا. ربنا تقبل منا انك انت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا انك التواب الرحيم. We also pray for our lecturer today that Allah continues to bless him too. Jazakallahu khairan. We thank him for the time and for the lecture that he has given. May Allah bless him and give him the reward. And all our lecturers. وصلى الله على خير الخلق محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
So back to the president, if he has any announcement, Bismillah.